No, not even. So it's just for the computer, and now what I'm finding.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to have your seats, please, so that we can begin?
We don't have the computer anymore, so I'm going to adjust it again.
Because he was blind since fourth grade, and it was a miracle after his cataracts. Excessive walking.
Yeah. And you are recording.
Walker, yes, we're live.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live or you're joining us on Zoom. We really appreciate you coming out this evening. I want to thank people who are arranging this. Our president of the Condo Association, Marie Forbes, and also the president of Condo One, Linda Ianoso. They've been very helpful in making this arrangement. Also, our arrangements made by our property manager that's setting up all the room for it. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out. It's important for all of us. We have the right to vote, and we should exercise that right. But we also should take the time to be educated voters. So I would hope that tonight will give you the ammunition to become more educated about the issues that are facing you, and then you can make your decision accordingly how best to fulfill your requirements as a citizen in our society. So first, I'd like to introduce the leader of this organization, Saving Greenburgh Coalition. It is it's been something that we've been trying to do for about the last 16 years, but with the leadership of Carol Allen, who is a retired physician, who made it her goal to be a community activist and really have led this effort. So we want to thank her, and she'll be talking about some of the things this organization has been doing, and introduce the other members here today. Before she do that, I also recognize somebody who is not here. That is Hugh Swartz and his wife, Janet. They are Edgemont residents, and probably the thorn in the side of those people who want to incorporate, because the last two times when the incorporation failed, they developed a legal strategy which they gave to the town, and the town successfully used to defeat the two previous attempts for incorporation. So they're not here tonight, but I just want to go on record and thank them for all the work they have done in the past. So now I'll turn it over to Dr.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon. Good evening. I am Carol Allen. As Mr. Simon just said, I am a retired physician. I live here in Hartsdale, and I've been here for the past 30 years where I've raised my two children. We are here tonight to talk about the problem of incorporation of the Edgemont section of town. And I thank those of you who are here in person, and I thank all of you who have joined us online tonight. We will have opportunities for questions and answers after I've made the presentation. We hope to be joined this evening by former Assemblyman Tim Abenanti, who's been actively involved in the village incorporation legislative issues for many years. So I'd like to start by clarifying for everyone what is the town, or who is the town of Greenburgh, because this is very important. Greenburgh extends from the Yonkers border north to Mount Pleasant, and from the Hudson River all the way over to White Plains and Scarsdale. It has 7 parts. There are 6 villages and the remainder, which is the unincorporated town. The villages are the 4 river towns, Hastings, Dobbs Ferry, Irvington, and Tarrytown. And then the other 2 villages are Ardsley and Elmsford. The town of Greenburgh has about 96,000 people in it, and about half of those people live in the villages. That leaves about 49,000 people in the unincorporated part, and all of us here in Hartsdale or Fairview, Juniper Hill, North White Plains portion, we are all in the unincorporated area. Edgemont has about 7,500 residents. And if those 7,500 people become a new village with a separate government, then more than half of the people in Greenburgh will be in the villages. Yet all of those people get to vote for the village government. The town government, for the town supervisor and the town council people. That majority would be able to influence the government, but that government does not govern them. We, the unincorporated, would not have a majority say, but we are the ones who would be governed by the government that we did not elect. And we believe that that is undemocratic.
The villages.
Now, the coalition came together in the beginning of this year when some of these civic leaders in town realized that Edgemont was once again trying to incorporate. And we found out that those of us who live in unincorporated communities outside of Edgemont would not have a vote in the matter. We would not have a vote. Only the people who live in Edgemont would be able to vote on whether to incorporate as a village or not. And we believe that that is undemocratic and needed to be remedied. So what did we do? We started lobbying our legislators to get a change in state legislation so that we would be able to vote should this matter come up. Why should we be able to vote on whether Edgemont becomes a village? Because it would affect us. Edgemont gives about 24% of the town budget. And if they become a separate village, they would withdraw that 24% of the money and give it straight to their village government. That would create about an $18 million hole in the Greenburgh unincorporated budget. $18 million. Most of that would have to be made up by cuts in staff, cuts in services because of the cuts in staff, and increase in taxes to make up the deficit. We would have cuts in police, EMS, sanitation, recreation, public works, library. All of those services would be affected. The police department currently has about 115 uniformed officers. 20% cut, that would be about 20 officers. Now you might say, okay, well, they don't have to serve Edgemont. Okay, perhaps they wouldn't, but with fewer officers, that would lead to an increase in response time whenever you would call for services. A 20% cut in sanitation is pretty easy to imagine. Instead of pickups 5 days a week, it would only be 4. So right now we have garbage pickup twice a week and recycling twice a week. That would probably be cut to sanitation pickups just once a week. Or maybe recyclables would only be picked up every other week instead of the current services we have now. I would hate to think what would happen with the first major snowfall if the public works department gets cut. I don't know about your streets, but I know mine get plowed with relative quickness whenever we have a snowfall. And if that gets cut back, we're all going to suffer. Greenburgh does have a lot of hills, and it would be problematic if our streets don't get plowed and salted.
I'm sorry.
Let's see. Any questions about the structure of Greenburgh? And what would happen if we have a 7th village?
Is there a history of when was the last village?
When did the last village become a village?
The last village the question was, when was the last village formed? I believe it was in the 1930s. So these 6 villages that we have in town now are all 100 years old. There have been no new villages since that time.
And only those people who lived in that village voted for those villages back then, I assume.
Yes, that is correct. The comment was the people that live in the villages then voted for those villages.
Right, so that's been the pattern for the last 100-something.
For the past 100 years, there have been 6 villages in town in unincorporated area. Village incorporation law was written in the 1870s. At that time, Westchester, the entire state, including Westchester, was mostly rural, and people needed to band together to provide services. They needed to create police departments. They needed to create sanitation. They needed to create water. So the village law was written then so that people could form governments to provide the services that they need. Right now, Greenburgh has all of these services. Edgemont has all of these services. So they do not need to form a new village in order to get services because they are receiving them already. And I would say they are of high quality. Okay. Okay, so we started working back in January and February. We were asked to have the right to vote in a referendum. This could have been accomplished by a very simple change in legislation called the Home Rule, which simply would have said, if there were a village incorporation in Greenburgh, everybody in unincorporated Greenburgh would be able to vote on that. The town board went along with this, they passed a resolution. We presented this to our state legislators, Assemblywoman Mary Jane Shinsky and State Senator Andrew Stewart Cousins. Our response from the senator was absolutely not. We will not make a change for one municipality. Anything that we do needs to be done statewide. She said that she would have a study done to see what changes could be done to update and modernize village incorporation law. That study was completed sometime in the spring, and late June, at the end of the legislative session, she had a bill written to change village incorporation process. Her bill, which is S7537, Village Incorporation Law, would make changes to the current process. The process now is a petition is submitted to the town supervisor. The town supervisor decides whether the petition is sufficient or not. The change in the process would be to have a village incorporation commission at the state level that would decide on petitions from any village incorporation throughout the entire state. The commission would have 3 individuals, one appointed by the Secretary of State, one by the Attorney General, and the third one, I always have trouble remembering. No, not the governor, the comptroller. The third was from the comptroller's office. They would then be able to look at the procedure from the point of view of the village that wants to incorporate, and they would also look at the needs of the town that they would be breaking away from. And if this commission decided that such a change would be detrimental, they would not allow it to proceed. So that does provide some protection for the unincorporated area, but it does not give us the right to vote. So our coalition is not fully satisfied with this change. The second change that her law would do would be to increase the number of people that need to be in the area that wants to incorporate. Currently, you only have to have 500 people to form a village, and that number would be increased to 2,000. 500 really is not financially feasible with the cost of doing business these days. The problem with the bill, which she did get through the Senate in the last 2 days and got through the Assembly in the last 2 days. The problem is that there was a section added that said that any petition that was currently started would be exempt from the new process. And this was a specific gift to the process. It did not say a petition that was filed. It merely said a petition that was started. So if I were to take this piece of paper and pass it around the room and say, ladies and gentlemen, let's form a new village of High Points. Please sign this paper saying that you want to have a new village here. I would have started a petition. It wouldn't have gone very far, but it would have been started. So we are extremely upset that the senator caved in to the special interest from Edgemont and decided that they did not need to be subject to the same rule as everyone else throughout the state. We are exceedingly upset about that. The laws, there was a second law. There was a second bill written by Senator James Fucus, which also addressed village incorporation, but his is very simple. His bill said, 1, the number of people in the village would have to be 2,000, and 2, the people wishing to incorporate would have to post a financial analysis publicly at least 90 days before a vote. So his bill is very simple. Increase the number, post financial analysis. Why hasn't that been signed? It hasn't been signed because it hasn't been sent to the governor for signature yet. The Stewart-Cousins bill also has been languishing on someone's desk, waiting to be sent to the governor. So since the summer, we have been contacting the governor's office, phone calls, meetings, emails, and letters, asking the governor's office to take some action so that we can get some movement on bills. We would like to have the Scoofus bill signed immediately. So should Edgemont file their petition, they would be required to post a financial analysis for everyone in Edgemont to see so that they can make an educated decision as to whether they want to vote for incorporation or not. And we would like to have the Stewart-Cousins bill modified, amended to remove that exemption for Edgemont so that they would have to play according to the same rules as everybody else in forming a new village. So we do have letters here tonight we would like to share with you so that if you would like to join this letter writing campaign, we would be able to do so. You could sign them tonight, you could send emails from your home computer, you could mail them however you would like. For those of you who are on Zoom, who would like to have access to this information, if you would type your email address in the chat box, we can send it to you. Or if you receive email from me directly inviting you to come to this meeting tonight,
I
you can
know.
respond on that email and we would
I
forward.
was fine, but it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Waiting for a moment to mute somebody.
I know. I was better over the weekend until I don't know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday I got sick
Please
again.
mute.
So what can you do?
Please mute yourself.
Mute off right here. Mute off.
Not so much during the day, but it's a dry cough. It's not a phlegmy kind of a cough.
Zoom user, please mute. Please mute.
No, didn't try it
Come
again.
up and see me sometime.
All right, we're having a little technical difficulty
just
because someone at
cold,
home hasn't
you
muted
know?
themselves. We're having difficulty
That's
doing it.
also COVID.
Bear with us for just a moment.
Now we got him.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me tell you how incorporation actually works. We have been at what is the process? First step is the people who wish to incorporate have to get signatures on a petition. 20% of the eligible voters in their area have to sign a petition. Or there's a different requirement for landowners. This is a very ancient criteria, but it is still on the books, being a landowner, a property owner, meaning that women in the past who did not own land would not have been eligible to sign. People who were renting would not be eligible to sign. So we're very happy that the new legislation is taking away that criteria, but that is what's on the books as of today. Once the petition is signed, it gets submitted to the town supervisor. The town supervisor reviews the petition to determine if it meets the requirements. Are there the sufficient number of signatures? Are the signatures on the petition valid? Is the list of names of the regular inhabitants of the village correct? Once the supervisor obtains the petition, he is required to have a public hearing. So if there's anyone who wants to object to the petition, they can be heard at the hearing. Once the hearing is completed, if the petition is sufficient, a vote must be held within 30 days. So the entire process could happen in as few as 60 days from start to finish, because each step has legal requirements how long it can take. If the town supervisor does not approve the petition, the petitioners can then go to court and appeal the decision. Once it gets in the hands of the courts, it can take months or years to be settled. Once the court makes the determination, whichever party is not happy can then appeal to a higher court. And that second appeal process, again, could take months to years. This has already happened twice with Edgemont attempting to petition. Okay. This has happened twice in the past 7 years, and this is now their third attempt to get the petition right. It has not been filed yet, so the clock has not started yet, but they have been finalizing the petition in order to turn it in. If the Stewart-Cousins bill gets signed into law, it goes into effect January 1st of 2024. So change is on the horizon, but as I said, the bill has not yet been sent to the governor to get his signature. We have been asked in the past, well, why isn't Greenburgh, the unincorporated area, incorporated? That could be done, but there's really no need to do that because the current government provides all the services that the town needs. So there would really be no advantage to the town as far as operations unincorporated. All right, you'll have to excuse me because usually at this point, an Edgemont resident by the name of Michael Schwartz, 6'3", stands up, taking my place and gives you his point of view. And he has done extensive financial analysis over the years of the effects of incorporation. But unfortunately, he could not be here with us tonight because of some health issues in his family. So I am trying to wing it in his place.
Doing a good job.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I spoke a little bit about cuts. I mentioned cuts in police. I'd like to point out that our EMS is run by our police department. So if we had cuts to police, EMS would be included. We do basic life support ambulance as well as advanced life support. And I know that if I were to be in a car accident or be at home having chest pain or shortness of breath, I would want the ambulance to come as quickly as possible. But if EMS gets cut, that also would have a decrease in the response time. You've mentioned sanitation cuts, the library. We believe that because of the need to maintain police and sanitation, larger cuts would come out of library and recreation than what would come out of the police. Right now, we have library services 7 days a week during the fall, winter, and spring. That might be cut back to 6 days a week. The evening hours that we now enjoy on Tuesdays and Wednesdays could possibly be cut. Hours at the pool, recreation in the summer, fewer lifeguards, fewer hours of service. Recreation would take a severe cut. They are the ones who would probably be cut the hardest. because they are not essential services.
Carol, we can't hear you. Carol, we cannot hear you.
Oh, or you hear me badly?
No, it's back now.
Now we can.
Now you
We can hear
can,
you now.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking up. Okay, and I've mentioned to you the two bills that we have gotten passed. Walter?
I just want to help you out in terms of finances.
Walter, stand up, please,
Oh,
come in
sorry.
the camera, so that those on Zoom can hear you.
I heard the argument, if Edgemont leaves about 18 or 20% from the town, then and so that will be 18 to 20%, whatever that number is, of less cost to the town. But that is not a straight relationship, because there's certain fixed costs that we will still have. So if you reduce your police department by a certain amount, you still have fixed costs. You have to maintain the building. You have to maintain your communication center. So certain fixed costs do not go away. So it's not a simple thing that they remove a certain percentage, so your costs go down by equal percentage. You will not go down by equal percentage. So you will have to make some cuts because you have a certain fixed cost that you can't get to do away with.
Thank you. What are we asking of you? Well, we ask for you to learn about the situation. Thank you for coming to hear what we have to say. We would love for you to join us in helping to get the word out to your friends, your neighbors, especially if you have friends in Edgemont. They need to know what's going on also. That's the one point I didn't make before when we were talking about a vote. If there is a voter referendum, a simple majority of the people who come out to vote determine the outcome of the referendum. There is no requirement for a certain number of people, for a minimum number of people in Edgemont to vote. If only 3 people come out to vote, and 2 of them say we want to incorporate, the referendum passes. 2 people could determine the fate of the 49,000 people unincorporated. Right? We cannot allow something like this to happen. I mean but based on voter turnout in Edgemont, there's a possibility that it could. In recent school board elections, no more than 500 people came out to vote. And one of those elections included a bond referendum for over $50 million. And only 500 people came out to vote on whether the school board could borrow $50 million. So it is crucial that the people in Edgemont know about this, that those of them that are not in favor of incorporation speak up and speak out. We especially need them to speak out to their assemblywoman, Amy Paulin. In the last election, in the last redistricting, Greenburgh's assembly districts were divided. So this area is represented by Mary Jane Shimsky, but the Edgemont area is represented by Amy Paulin. She has not heard our point of view because she has not responded to our overtures to sit down and have a discussion. So if you have any friends in Edgemont, please speak with them, ask them to get in touch with their elected representative to let her know how they feel about the process. That's very important. So we would like you to reach out to the governor to let her know that we need her to sign this law. We need her to insist upon getting the Stewart-Cousins bill amended. That can be done as soon as the legislature opens again in January by doing what's called a chapter amendment to the bill to delete that section that exempts Edgemont. You can continue to contact Senator Stewart-Cousins to let her know that you're not happy with the way we were treated under the terms of the new bill, and to encourage her to get those bills on the governor's desk as quickly as possible so that they can be signed into law. Are there questions? And anyone on Zoom, if you would like to ask a question, you would like to answer it.
Tell them to unmute themselves.
They can unmute themselves.
I think so.
If you know how to put your hand up on Zoom, please do so, or we'll ask you to speak.
I have a question.
While we're waiting for someone on Zoom, I have 3 hands here in the audience.
Okay, we have somebody on Zoom.
Okay, we'll go to Zoom first, okay? Yes.
What's
Go
the
ahead.
what's the motivation of Edgemont to secede?
Okay, the question was, what's the motivation of Edgemont to succeed? Based on the conversations that I've had, there are 3 things. One is a dislike of the current town supervisor, who has been in office now for 30 years. The second is a desire to control their zoning. And the third is not wanting to be on the hook for any lawsuits that the town loses. I'd like to address those 3 things. First, if you don't like the person who's in office, you vote them out. You don't break away and start a new town because you don't like the person in office. And in fact, no one from Edgemont has run for the town council for at least the past 15 years. And those who did try to run for supervisors lost in the primary, so they did not have support. But that's the democratic process, majority rule. You don't just break away because you don't like the outcome of an election. The second, control of zoning. The attempt of Village Incorporation really got started within the past 15 years because the developer purchased property on Central Avenue known as Dromore Road. This is adjacent to the Greenburgh Nature Center. There's a large parcel of land, and the developer wanted to build workforce houses. The Edgemont community was opposed to that, and because of their very vocal opposition to the developer's plan, the town did not approve the developer's plan. The developer sued us, and the developer won. So the town now is paying the legal expenses of having defended the suit, as well as the damages that were awarded to the developer. So let me make that perfectly clear. The town did what Edgemont wanted. The town lost the lawsuit because we did what Edgemont wanted. And now Edgemont is saying, you guys caused us to have a lawsuit and we don't want to be responsible for paying the lawsuits that you, the town, are causing to happen. Okay, so that to me also doesn't make sense. Okay, so the third thing was the lawsuits. There was another one. The Fortress Boston, no, but that's not the one. An assisted living facility on Spring Ridge Road. Developer came in, bought the property, wanted to build assisted living. Edgemont said, we don't want you to have this assisted living in our community. We don't want the traffic that's going to come through, the fire trucks, the ambulances. The town, once again, turned it down. The developer sued. The developer won. And now we're paying the price for that. And Edgemont is saying, the town is always getting involved in these lawsuits and we don't want to have to pay the damages for the suits. So that's the story, as well as I can tell it, as the best I know, as to why Edgemont wants to incorporate. Other questions from Zoom?
If a person,
Steve Glesker.
Steve?
Yes, hi. Yes, hi. I have a few questions. One is, why hasn't the Scoofus bill and Andrea Stewart's cousin's bill, why have they not been sent to the governor?
The question is, why haven't the Scoofus and Stewart Cousins bill been sent to the governor?
Not
The
been sent.
answer, as far as I know, is because the senator has not sent them yet. The governor has not asked for them, and Senator Stewart Cousins has not sent them yet. That is a perfect segue, because Assemblyman Tom Avenanti has just arrived. And he is the expert in our group on what happens in Albany. So if all of you would please hold your questions a little while he speaks, and then we'll continue with Q&A after.
I'm not Tom.
No, you have more hair than I do. I just want to say hello. Thank you for letting me join you this evening. As many of you know, have been involved in government in Greenburgh for a long, long time. When was Edgemont, well, not Edgemont, when was High Point first built? Does anybody know?
It's 71, 74, 74, something like that.
Because I remember I was elected to the Greenburgh Town Council in 1979 and served 4 years, 80 through 84. And I remember at that point, we were involved in several matters trying to help the people of the condominium association with all kinds of problems with the developer, et cetera, way back then. And I've had the privilege of coming by here every time I've run for election over the past years to say hello. You have a very potent group of voters here. And you can be very, very helpful in moving things in one direction or another. If you can get everybody together and everybody understand what's going on. When I served as a Greenburgh Town Councilman way back then, I then served as a councilman in 90 and 91. I served 19 years in the Board of Legislators representing this area, and then 12 years as an assembly member representing you. So I'm very familiar with government. In between, I was counsel to the Greenburgh Housing Authority and to the parking district and various other government entities. I've seen government work in all different ways. But what I've come to understand is, as one famous politician said, we are better together. In all of the roles that I served, when people started to fight with each other, when people wanted to break away, etc., it undermined the very system that we are so proud of in this country. We're seeing this on the national level. We've seen it, across the country. People want to segregate themselves. They want to move away from everybody else. That's just not good for our country. It's not good for our community. We want people to work together, especially at a time of inflation, when things are expensive, where there's a shortage of workers. We don't need to have more government. We don't, in New York State, need another village. We certainly don't need another village here in Greenburgh. The town of Greenburgh is I'm part of, we would plan the town on the basis of the way the town was configured. The last village, I think, was Elmsford about 100 years ago, a little bit more than that. And I've listened to some of the mayors talk about how they wish that their community was not a village. This is after they left as mayor. They thought back and they said, it was tough. We have this tiny little village, and we're trying to provide services, and it gets very, very expensive. You don't have the economy of scale. Compare that to the town of Greenburgh, that has a much larger area, larger constituency, and can afford to have all of the services that we need. Whether that's collecting the garbage, or what I always use is the police department. Town of Greenburgh has one of the best and one of the largest police departments in the entire area. And you think about it, when I was representing the area as an assembly member, people would say, why are you getting involved in this local issue that's not your issue anymore? I said, well, I represent the area. And if there is an all-night deli somewhere, but all of a sudden some gang comes in and starts to terrorize the owners of the, where's the police department gonna come from? The state police aren't here. There are no state police out there at night. There's a few cars here and there. The county police, the same thing. So where are they gonna come from? White Plains? They're gonna come up from Yonkers? They're gonna come from Mount Vernon? No, you're gonna get Greenburgh. Greenburgh and White Plains are gonna respond. And I think Greenburgh is actually, White Plains is a city of what, 40,000 people or something like that? Greenburgh is 95,000, and the unincorporated area has more police, I believe, than White Plains has. So who's got police on at night? Now, if you take away 25% of the tax base, are you still gonna have the same type of police department, the same response? That's a problem, isn't it? And who's gonna pay for all of the services that have been put in place and all of the parks and everything else? It's gonna be the other 75%, which means everybody else's taxes are gonna have to go up. You're gonna be paying more for diminished services. So that's why I say we're stronger together. When somebody wants to create another village, maybe in upstate New York, why are they doing it? Well, because they're in farm country and they need some police services. And the people in the town say, we don't need, we've got guns. We can shoot all the deer. We can shoot all the foxes. We can shoot whatever. And if a burglar comes by, we'll take care of him too. Because why? It takes forever for the police department and they don't want to pay the taxes. But if you're living in this little area where all this, where you need a traffic light because there's too much traffic. Now all of a sudden you have a general store and then you get a supermarket. Then you get what you see the base. No, you want to form a village. That's what the village law was intended to do. It was not intended to allow people to peel away from a suburban, almost urban area. It was not intended to do that. Unfortunately, Edgemont the Edgemont people, or some of the Edgemont people, let's say, we've been trying to take advantage of this law since back in the 1950s. And there have been different motivations at different times. Now I'm not quite sure what their motivation is. You try to explain to them, you're not going to save any taxes by doing this. It's going to cost you more. And the people who are urging the secession are saying, well, no, we'll find a way to do this. Well, where are you going to get the police department? Where are you going to get, we'll buy it from Greenburgh. Well, wait a minute. Why are you going to buy it from Greenburgh? So now you're going to say to Greenburgh, we left you. We don't want to be married to you anymore, but we still want you to provide the services and we want you to provide it at a rock bottom cost. So why would Greenburgh want to do that? Right? I mean, if you're right, I mean, right now you're paying 25% of the taxes. There's a philosophy that I've always had, and I'm a Democrat. I'll start off with that. And that is you take from those who can afford it and you give to those who need it. And what they're trying to do is just the opposite. That's a rather wealthy community. It's a community that can afford to contribute to the town of Greenburgh and help the people for a little bit more needy. And let's face it, the community is getting older. We need services for senior citizens, not just for poorer people and poorer kids, but also for senior citizens. You need an ambulance that's going to be able to show up here, emergency response. I remember when I was on the Greenburgh Town Board the second time, it was actually the first time in the 1980s, when we instituted the EMTs. Right? Now everybody takes it for granted, right? It's the police department driving around. You've got guys on the street all the time. They show up at a moment's notice. She wants me to stop, so good. But I'm just trying. They show up at a moment's notice. Why? Because Greenburgh has the resources to be able to do that. I got some money for the town of Greenburgh for a playground. They were able to do what was necessary. It's a playground for kids with disabilities. If you chop up and take away 25% of the tax base, how's the town going to continue to keep that playground in place? Okay, they've got to maintain it. How are they going to keep the services? They've got some great services at the community center. How are they going to continue? How are they going to pay for the town park? Now, for many of you, you would say, well, we have our own facilities here. What do we care? Well, you do care because you don't, if you need that police department, if there's a problem here, you want them to come right away. And you want the rest of the town to prosper, and you don't want to pay more in taxes. You don't want to pay more for the services that you're not using. The people who are out there should be bearing their fair share. So that's kind of the way I come at this. Now, I tried to pass some legislation in Albany that would make it more difficult to form a village in the state of New York. And I tried every which way. And after I left the legislature, the senator decided that I wasn't around anymore, I guess. So now she was going to do it. She could have done it with me, but she didn't. But she knows that I would not have stood for the language that got inserted into that bill. And you probably have discussed it already, right? That little clause at the end. Now, how do you finally, after years of one assembly member saying, we've got to change the village law, it's not a good law. How do you finally admit that there's a need for a change and then exclude your own community? How do you say, we're going to let people who've been doing this for 50 years or 70 years, have not been successful, we're going to give them one more chance? That's just not right. It's just not right to say they're going to get one more chance. They failed. The courts have said that they've done it wrong. Why are you going to give them another chance? So I think that we have to all come together and make it clear that we want the governor, if she's going to sign this bill, to insist that that last paragraph be struck out. I don't think it's a bad bill. Otherwise, I think the bill is a fairly good bill. A lot of the ideas that I've been pushing for years are in that bill, so I'm happy with it. But to say that they're going to have one more chance, I think the governor has to insist on a chapter amendment. Now, why hasn't it been sent to the governor? My guess, without talking to the governor, is that the governor's trying to figure out the merits of this, because it's not just Greenburgh. There are several other communities around the state that are going to be affected. And there's all kinds of politics in those communities as to whether they want to block another village. Because in some parts of the state, they actually want another village. And so the governor's got to figure out a way of making sure that in those communities where they should get a village, this law is not going to stop them from getting it. While at the same time, in other parts of the state where there shouldn't be another village, this bill would be an impediment. So I think it's not so simple. We would see it only from the Greenburgh point of view, but there are all these other things going on out there. But I do hope that in the end, the governor signs the bill and insists that the legislature commit to what's called a chapter amendment. And the reason it's called a chapter amendment is because when she signs a bill, it becomes a chapter of the laws of the state of New York. And it's given a number. It might be 2000. Excuse me. Let me just get rid of this. Oh, it always happens like that, doesn't it? Yeah. So let's say it's chapter 177 of the laws of 2023. So the way it usually works is the governor says, I'm going to veto the bill, or she'll say, I want a chapter amendment. And there's a gentle person's agreement between the governor and the leadership of the legislature. And they all, they trust each other. And the governor says, I'll sign it, but I need the following language, and they commit themselves. And then the first thing that happens in the new session, you'll see for the first several weeks, the legislature spends its time voting on what they call chapter amendments. They're amending the chapter that was just made. So for a short period of time, the law is as it was passed by the legislature, but then sometime in the first few weeks of the legislature, there's a change to it, and the governor signs that because she knows she already negotiated that. I've had several bills like that where, good idea, governor's office doesn't want to weigh in until it's actually passed. It gets passed, it goes to the governor. Governor's office comes back and says, okay, we like the bill, we don't want to veto it, but we need this. So we all say, okay, fine. And it's up to the leadership of the assembly to make sure that bill gets put in quickly, gets passed quickly, and goes back to the governor with the changes. So it seems to me that the appropriate thing here is to get a chapter amendment to get rid of that offensive language that will allow Edgemont to continue its efforts. The rest of it, and if you knock that out, then it would be very hard for Edgemont to do what it wants to do. But in the end, we all suffer, whether you live in Greenburgh or not. For Edgemont to go take away its tax base, do its own thing, impose additional costs, take more employees in from the small market out there and set up another government, which we don't need. It affects the entire area and hurts the entire area. So I'm very strong, in my opposition to Edgemont's effort. So I hope that's been helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I want to take a moment. Mr. Abenanti said, I don't know why she decided to do the bill now. Well, I'd like to acknowledge that there were several community leaders who met with her, who influenced her to finally get moving. Lloyd Court from Parkway Gardens, Alicia Ford, Parkway Homes President, Civic Association President, Dawn Joel Wise, Parkway Gardens Civic Association President, Bishop Wilbert Preston, the pastor of Christ Temple Church, Dennis Rudin, who is a
Edgebrook Co-op.
from what?
Edgebrook Co-op.
Edgebrook Co-op, North White Plains, who is a cable TV host for political issues. Walter Simon was not present at the meeting, but he is part of our group. He was the chairperson of the Greenburgh Planning Board for many, many years. And there are a couple others who are not here, so they don't get to have their names called. Okay. I'd like to take some more questions in the last few minutes before we stop. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just the logistics of unincorporated Greenburgh. You take Ardsley Road and you go north on Central Park Avenue. I'm thinking of on the east side, there's a number of condominium complexes. I think they're called the Edgemont, the Scarsdale Ridge. Some of those, are they part, they buttress Edgemont? Are they part of Edgemont or are they Greenburgh?
Along Central Avenue, once you pass.
Going north from Ardsley Road.
Going north from Ardsley Road, that is Edgemont, up until you get to Marion Avenue, just about. There's a complex there where actually the complex is split in
Marion
two.
Avenue,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Many of these are across, no, there's one or two across from Marion, one from
Right.
Marion. So that's where Greenburgh starts.
That is.
or at the glass house. That's what-
Greenburgh starts at the Yonkers line and comes all the way up to the White Plains line. All right, the Edgemont section starts at the Yonkers line and comes up to about Marion Avenue. But please remember, all of that is part of Greenburgh. That's the section that wants to break away and form a new village.
So I'm not sure if I understand that. That is it part of, is there allegiance with Edgemont or is there allegiance with unincorporated Greenburgh?
Starting at the Yonkers line, coming up Central Avenue is part of Greenburgh. There are some individuals who live in that area, which is known as the Hamlet of Edgemont, who want to form a separate village.
Even though they're on Central Park, that's an, okay,
That is
yes.
yes. Was there another question here from the audience? Dennis?
Well, it wasn't a question, but a quick thing for Tom. Do politicians pay attention to letters that voters send in? And we have put together a sample letter also for people who may not be comfortable composing their own letter, and they can get instructions by what's the email for Saving Greenburgh?
The question, for those of you who didn't hear it, is, are politicians, specifically the governor, influenced by letters that are sent to them? And I believe the answer to that is yes. The more letters that are sent, the better. And if you would like to have a sample letter to send, if you got the email from me, carolballennd@yahoo.com, you can respond to that email address and I can forward a sample letter to you.
Also remind the people on Zoom that we're saving the chats. If they put in the chat, we will.
Okay, and if you're on Zoom and you want to type your email address into the chat, we will get your email address out of the chat and forward sample letters to you. and anything else that we have that you would like to have, we will freely share with you. Because we want as much education to be disseminated as possible. Yes, ma'am.
Is it too late to get Andrea Stewart Cousins to amend this bill, to remove that language herself? Why would she be siding with such a small minority of the town?
There's an expression that says money talks.
Money to
So I have to believe that there has been some fiscal influence, and I'm not suggesting it was criminal. But if your donors are people who say, hey, I really want to incorporate, you are going to listen to what they're saying to you because you're hoping that they will continue to donate to your cause. And Edgemont is a very affluent community, so there's a lot of money that can be donated to political campaigns from that community. They also what?
They're hired lobbyists.
Oh, they also have hired lobbyists that work in Albany.
I also think that she didn't expect this much blowback, especially when Carol came on board. Because we were trying to.
We were struggling for a long
with
time.
petitions and everything, and then she came and they probably said, oh.
I think she was also trying to get a compromise. She can now tell the people in Greenburgh, hey, I passed a bill to make it more difficult to form a village. And then she can go back to the Edgemont people and say, see, but I gave you an out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ma'am?
Yes, when you had mentioned all the services that could be affected, what about fire department and what about the school system?
The question was services that would be cut. What about the fire department and the school system? Edgemont already has a separate school system. People in Edgemont pay their school taxes to the Edgemont school system. That would not be affected. Edgemont is serviced by the Greenville Fire District. That is separate and distinct. And what they hope to do is to have that Greenville Fire District to service their fire needs. So that, as far as service provision, would not be affected. In fact, in one of the prior petitions, they used the fire district boundaries to say this is what will be the boundaries of the village. But that had to be challenged. There was some technicality, perhaps the fire district borders weren't completely clear. So that was one of the reasons why one of the petitions was not successful. Thank you. Are there other questions from online?
Please email company. That's someone typed in chat. Linda Bryan typed in the chat. Please email copy of the letters.
Okay, we will do that. Thank you. Walter, you want to say something?
There is an indirect effect on the school because
Walter, come stand in front of the camera so he can proceed.
there is an indirect effect on the school district. Because if your town taxes go up and your services go down, that is not the type of environment that people will be in the mood to support the school budget. So it creates a very bad environment. It's not a direct effect, but it creates a bad environment for successful passing of school budget.
Everyone thinks of that. And the only vote that people get on taxes is the school district vote. So if their town taxes are going up, they're gonna take it out from the school district. That's the postscript to what Walter is saying.
Okay. It has been an hour and I believe we should conclude. Lloyd Court wants to have the last word.
It's so interesting tonight that I don't think this will be the last word. Because I think everybody has something to say, but time is the essence. That's what happens. The only thing I would like to say is that, Walt, you did mention that the school system will be affected by the taxes. Perfect. But the thing I want to mention to you is that we would like to have young, also new neighbors coming into unincorporated Greenburgh. But do you think they will come when the taxes are so high? No. Nobody, already it's hard. So there again, there is that filtration attitude that we're coming into Greenburgh. We'll be losing. We'll be losing housing. We'll be losing all these facilities that are associated with the real estate. Now, I will say most emphatically that I was privileged to be at the Parks and Rec, trying to have signatures, trying to educate people that live in Edgemont about the circumstances that surrounds them if they become village. And about 98% of people that signed those positions decided to say that, listen, I'm gonna sign up because I'm not in agreement with it. And as Carol said earlier, is that it's just a few people that would like to segregate themselves and become a village. So I am saying to you, those people that even though they're living in Edgemont is not in agreement with becoming a village. So that's my say.
Okay, thank you. All right, one more question before we.
Yeah, so if everyone in Edgemont is not in agreement with this, would you say that those smaller condominium complexes should be, are they being addressed? Do they know about this?
I have been sending emails throughout the community. But I only have about 3,000 email addresses. And there are 49,000 people in Greenburgh. So I don't know how well the message has penetrated into that community. But we do know that there's a lot of apathy. People don't come out to vote.
But so we have to get the word out.
We have to get the word out. That's our job. And we would love to have more help. All right, so if anyone is interested in stepping up and helping us, please let me know. And I thank all of you for coming tonight. Those of you who are here in person, those of you who came in by Zoom. Thank you so much. Be safe. Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How do I say this one? Yeah.
Where's the chalk?
So you off when you? Yeah, never off.
The microphone open.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you have to retire to something, you can't retire from there.
Walter,
Yeah.
Edgemont became a village.
Okay, so now-
We'll be able to use the Greenburgh.
Right.
Would be a big loss for that.
Huge.
They don't-
There's some people, I believe, say. Order, they have. Chickens in attention. And now if you sold the 100. So now you can.
Give way to serve.